The Arizona Department of Revenue presents an overview of Form 285, the General Disclosure Representation Authorization Form. Form 285 is used to authorize the Department to release confidential information to the taxpayer's appointee. The Department may have to disclose confidential information to fully discuss tax issues with or respond to tax questions by the appointee. A taxpayer may also use the Form 285 to grant additional powers to the appointee, up to and including a power of attorney. Any of the following may file a Form 285: an individual or individuals that file a joint return, a sole proprietorship, a corporation or group of consolidated or combined corporations, a partnership, a limited liability company, an estate, a trust, a governmental agency, or any other organization, association, or group. It's important that the forms be filled out completely and correctly. Incomplete or incorrect forms will not be processed and will be returned for correction. The following tutorial will give you information on how to correctly file an Arizona Form 285. Additional information can be found in the Arizona General Tax Procedure 15-2, available on the Department website at www.azdor.gov. Section 1 of the Form 285 is for the taxpayer information. There is space to enter the taxpayer's name, address, and daytime telephone number. If more space is needed, an additional page can be attached. If a taxpayer has a foreign address, the address should be entered in the following order: city, province or state, and country. Follow the country's practice for entering the postal code and do not abbreviate the country's name. The type of identification numbers needed in this section will depend on the type of taxpaying entity and type of tax matters the form will be covering. For income tax purposes, each individual signing this form must enter his or her Social Security number. A corporation, partnership, trust, or estate must enter its Employer Identification Number, or EIN. For withholding tax purposes, an individual, corporation, partnership, trust, or estate must enter its Employer Identification Number. For transaction privilege tax purposes, an individual must enter the TPT license number. A corporation, partnership, or trust must enter its TPT number. If the corporation, partnership, or trust has more than one location, also enter the corporation, partnership, or trust's EIN. An estate must enter the estate's TPT license number. Section 2 is for the appointee's information. Please note, the appointee must be an individual. The first and last name and address of the person the taxpayer is appointing to receive confidential information and to act on the behalf of the taxpayer is to be entered here. If the appointee has a foreign address, the information is to be entered in the following order: city, state or province, and country. Use the country's practice for entering the postal code and do not abbreviate the country. There are spaces for the ID number of the individual appointee. The ID number may be an SSN, CPA number, state bar number, alternative preparer tax ID number, or other government-issued ID number that's unique to the appointee. If the taxpayer wants to name more than one appointee, the taxpayer can attach an additional sheet that contains the required information for each appointee. Note, the identification number used for each individual appointee designated must be unique. For identification purposes, the appointee will need to provide the identification number when contacting the Department of Revenue. The Form 285 may be used for more than one tax type. Section 3 is used to indicate the tax matters the form will be covering. The taxpayer must check boxes to specify what tax types are covered by the authorization. The taxpayer must also specify the tax years or tax periods that the authorization will cover. It is also necessary to check the box that properly describes the ownership of the taxpayer. For more information, see General Tax Procedure DTP 15-2, available on www.azdor.gov. When you sign the Form 285, you are authorizing the Department to release confidential information to the named appointee. If you would like to grant additional authority to the appointee, you complete Section 4 of this form. If you want to grant a power of attorney, you skip Section 4 and complete Section 5. Items 4A through 4H allow the taxpayer to grant additional authorizations to the appointee. Check all the boxes that apply. The items specified in items 4A through 4F are administrative matters with the department. Any other authorization that involves negotiating legal rights or responsibilities or filing documents on the taxpayer's behalf is also an administrative matter. In order to represent the taxpayer in an administrative matter, the appointee must be an Arizona attorney or must meet the requirements of Rule 31D13 of the Arizona Rules of the Supreme Court. See the Form 285 instructions for specific details on these important requirements. By checking the box in Section 5, the taxpayer grants the appointee power of attorney. A power of attorney authorizes the appointee to perform any and all acts that the taxpayer can perform with regard to the tax matters and tax years or periods specified. This includes the items listed in items 4A through 4H. Any limitations to this power of attorney must be specified. The use of power of attorney must be in accordance with Rule 31 of the Arizona Rules of the Supreme Court. See the Form 285 instructions for more details regarding these specific requirements. This authorization does not revoke any earlier authorizations of powers of attorney on file. If you want to revoke all prior authorizations and powers of attorney, please check the revocation box. If you wish to revoke only some prior authorizations and/or powers of attorney, please check the box and list those authorizations and powers of attorney that you wish to remain in effect. Section 7 is used for corporations having controlled subsidiaries. If names are listed in this section, the taxpayer must check a box to indicate if the names listed are to be included in the disclosure authorization or excluded from the disclosure authorization. The department may disclose confidential information relating to a corporate taxpayer to a designee of the taxpayer who is authorized in writing by the taxpayer. Please see the Form 285 instructions available on the department's website for specific instruction regarding corporations having controlled subsidiaries. The signature of the taxpayer is entered in Section 8. There are differing signature requirements depending on the entity type of the taxpayer. Refer to the instructions for the form for further details. The declaration of the appointee is shown in Section 9. If the appointee has been given authority under any of Section 4A through 4H or Section 5, or is otherwise authorized to practice law as defined by Rule 31A of the Arizona Rules of the Supreme Court, the appointee must sign and date this declaration and enter a designation from 9A through 9E. The persons who are authorized to practice law before the Department of Revenue include Arizona attorneys and those authorized under Rule 31D13 of the Arizona Rules of the Supreme Court. An appointee indicating authorization under 9D who's engaged in practice with a federally authorized tax practitioner must provide the name of the practitioner with whom he or she works and that practitioner's CAF number in the place provided. Here are some tips to avoid some common mistakes. Review the instructions and the General Tax Procedure 15-2 before completing the form. Be sure that the taxpayer and appointee sections are complete, including identification numbers. Check that the Tax Matters section is complete. Be sure that the form is signed by the necessary parties based on the type of taxpaying entity. If applicable, be sure the correct information is entered in the Declaration of Appointee section. Retain a copy of the form for your records. The address to mail the completed form is Taxpayer Information and Assistance, Arizona Department of Revenue, P.O. Box 29086, Phoenix, Arizona 85038-9086. Note: if you are sending this form at the request of a department employee, instead of sending the completed form to the address listed above, mail the original or a photocopy of the completed form to the address that is provided to you by the employee. This concludes the overview of the Form 285. Additional information on this and other topics is available on the Arizona Department of Revenue website at www.azdor.gov and www.aztaxes.gov.